Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're actually getting into a pretty deep video. We're gonna jump into the topic of how the family structure is actually under attack. Now, I may have touched on this a little bit in a past video or two, but I definitely want to dive into this a lot more deeper. Um, yes, because apparently, with a lot of research that I've been doing, a lot of people that I know, even people that are close to me, are going through a lot of this stuff and seeing the results of what's happening on a widespread level of the family structure being attacked. And it's even more so, particularly towards certain groups of people, though it still is something that can touch on anybody that might be affected to it. So I'm not going to limit it to say that it's just one, group of people, because there are other people who are affected by it, even though it primarily seems to be targeted more so at particular groups. So essentially, what's happening, the general breakdown, and we're going to go into deeper details. And I'm actually going to make this a two-part video where in the first half of the video, we talk about really just what's going on, how it's being done, and all the different realms that it affects. And then the second part of the video will be on ways that it could be fixed. And unfortunately, I think that in this day and age, in these times, the conventional family structure is not only fading away, but the means to repair it may have to be a little unconventional for a while as well. Let's just jump into it right now with the first beginning half of it, which is going to be, like I said, breaking down what's really kind of going on. So, for the most part, we already know that, taken away from the fact that the dating world in itself is already kind of in shambles, the way people are one from the next, go to the next person, to the next person, you don't really have those core set of values anymore that you used to have years back. So a lot of times now, people really don't even care to view someone as family when they do get with somebody. But if you do manage to get past that part and you do manage to have your life intertwined with somebody, um, the system, the government, everything is incentivized to try to break you guys up, and they do the best that they can. One of the main things that they do is they try to attack the family structure. We're going to break down all the different ways that they do that. But within this, who is their target? So their target when they do this in terms of how they break up that dynamic is they target the women. And they've been doing this for a long time now, which is why you have a lot of people who are caught up in a child support system, a welfare system, all this other kind of stuff, systems that are in place to deal with not having the dad in the picture. And this is the beginning of how you start to break down the family structure. So, why is it that women are targeted and not men? Well, most men have a natural instinct to want to maintain their family. All men will agree with this, though some women may not agree with this. But also, part of that, of thinking that it's not like that, is part of the manipulation done by the system, by media, to put out there this idea that, men don't want to have their families or be around the families, so that it creates that narrative when that, in fact, most men actually do want to always stick around with their family, stick around with their kids, stick around with their significant other, their woman. And their mentality is, though there are certain things that the guy may have trouble dealing with, which have gotten worse over the times, because, like I said, losing those core values in the family dynamic, uh, we've gotten to a place now where there's no respect in relationships in general. So it creates, or the household, I'll say, in general. So it's created a dynamic where the tolerance for people to stay and work things out is already being attacked in itself, without even getting to the other layers of it. But if you are able to even get past all that, you get into the part where, like I said, the reason why women are targeted is because the idea is, well, the biggest thing that a man provides, that the woman will assume that the man provides for her is finances. And that's what society has tried to put out there now, that men are nothing more than finances in a household, which in actuality, there's so much more than that. But by breaking them down to something as simple as finances, the government will jump in and say to a woman, I will replace the dad by being that finance. I'll take up the financial burden. I'll be those things. So so the system directly comes in by saying, I'm going to replace the dad or the father of that unit, the man of that unit, the structure of that unit, the person who kind of, um, the man doesn't do everything. There's a component that you have with the woman that goes hand in hand with it. But the part that the man usually provides, being that leadership role, being the role who is providing a certain type of structure, including long term legacy building, is something that the society, the government, whoever wants to take out of the picture. And they understand that that is something that's innately structured and built into the man for that long term. So understanding, they try to attack the short term by attacking the woman who is there for nurturing. There are two components within the family structure. You have the long term, you have the protector, the provider, and the long term, which is the man. And then you have the woman who, generally speaking, will provide interior structure to the home. And when I say that, I don't necessarily mean just the physical home, but for the most part, you could call it that. It's maintaining that order, that balance inside the home for the kids, for the man, that structure that keeps everyone on point on the everyday basis. So while the man is looking more towards the future basis in the long term structure of the home, the external, if you want to call it that, the woman is really providing that every day to day internal workings that make everybody more efficient in the household. But like, for example, doctor's appointments, having all the schedule ready for the kids, doctor's appointments for the man, for herself as well. But, having everyone's lunches ready for the kids and the man, making sure everything's on point, making sure that he's able to run out the house and do what he's got to do without having to worry about, oh, I got to get my clothes ready. I got to do this. I got to do that. Maybe I didn't get a chance to do laundry, this and that. And not saying that the man doesn't, take up that part when he needs to, the same way the woman will take up the financial part when she needs to. But for the most part, both of them have their main roles that they play that provide for the household, and they're both needed. The thing about it is that the woman's role, being that it's more upfront and immediate, and the man's role is more long term, it's easier to go after the woman's role and target her, because for her, what she needs from the man is immediate support for finances. And the man needs that structure and needs a legacy to even be doing that building for you. Take away the legacy, you take away his kids, you take away the family, there's nothing for him to be working for. He's working for the family. So and it's easier to replace the man. Not to say it's easier, but it's in the sense that it's easier to target the woman than it is to target the man in this situation. Because if the government tried to come and say, well, you know what, a man's not going to say, I need you for finances so you can have control of my life. But if the government tried to come in and say, well, I'm going to provide you with structure in your household in terms of getting things taken care of, and like um a babysitter for your kid, I'm gonna have someone come in and cook for you, I'm gonna do a guy's gonna say, no, I don't want that, because the only person I want doing that is the woman. I don't want a replacement for the woman. You can't replace the woman. That's how most men are gonna feel, because obviously um there's so much more that comes with the woman than just her cooking and cleaning, which is necessary as well in planning out everyone's schedule, doctor's appointments, meetings, this and that, making sure everyone's calendar is good for the kids and the man and everything like that. But it's beyond that. There's also the intimacy aspect, which a guy is like gonna say, you government can't replace this. You can't replace that. I'm gonna come home and I'm gonna sit down, someone's gonna rub my back and tell me how was my day. Government can't replace that. But when it comes to replacing a man, there's so much more that a man brings to the table. But by brainwashing the population and making it feel like the only thing the man brings to the table is finances, they go, we can replace that, which in actuality, the man provides a lot more than that. He provides guidance. He provides, wisdom from being out there in the world, knowing how, you know, the dangers of the world as well, teaching his children how to protect themselves as well, being out there inside the world like that. And I'm not saying that women don't provide a certain aspect of that as well, but you also have to understand that there's a difference between what the woman puts in and what the man puts in. And you need both. And the man is the one who really teaches about long-term building, which is why a lot of men on their own always have their finances usually on par. And I'm not talking about the 20% of men who just run around having fun. We're not talking about that because that's not the majority that holds of society. So before anyone jumps in with that, or any women who might want to jump into the conversation to say, well, there's some guys who are bad out there and they're not good with their finances. We're not talking about that. We're talking about all the guys who are always in school, the guys who finish school and then they have a steady job. They're probably not the coolest or charismatic guy. Those guys are who hold up society. Those are the family men. And we're talking about those guys. So with that being said, they provide a lot more than just finances, but at the same time too, they are the ones who have their finances together. So that's not what they're going to need from the government. So and I'm sorry, this video is going to take a little while. I really wanted to be able to get this out there and put a lot of really energy into it because I think it's very important for people to understand what's going on. So going back to what we just said, the person who's targeted is mostly the women. 9 times out of 10, it's really always going to be the women. Now, what is it that the government will try to provide with the idea of replacing the dad? Well, you have things like welfare to say, hey, we can get you on a program. Mind you, all these things that I'm about to mention do nothing for legacy building, and they understand that. And that's part of their point. They do not want families becoming stronger, building a legacy, having generational wealth, having financial freedom. They don't want this. So by destroying the structure of the family, they know they're losing that. That's exactly what they're targeting. And they understand that by getting rid of the father in the situation, the man in the picture, that you are losing that legacy building aspect. So as I continue, welfare is something that they provide to say to the woman, hey, we'll give you financial aid in some way or some capacity. So you don't need the man. In addition to that, we'll provide child support. Now, child support is supposed to be really if a man is out of the picture intentionally and he doesn't want to be there to support his kid. It's not supposed to automatically be something where if the woman and the man happen to break up, because that's what's incentivized these days, they happen to break up, they're still family. Um, you don't need to replace the dad. You don't need money. The dad is still there. You just give the dad his time. You give him his 50% of time. You give the woman her 50% of time. And then the kid is going to still be nurtured from both aspects of it. Both of them are going to take care of their own financial um, responsibilities when it comes to that scenario. The problem is the government will jump in and say, no, we're going to take away from the man and provide child support, which is not the same because that money doesn't give the same what the father actually brings to the table in that family structure. Even if the two are separated, the kid is not getting the same. The check, which never goes to the kid in the first place, is not providing lessons learned, is not providing experience that the dad has, especially if, whether it's a daughter or it's a son. If it's a son, the father's going to teach them to be a man. If it's a daughter, the father is going to teach the daughter the things to look out for from other men, to not get caught up in men that the difference between men that are trying to use them versus the men that they should be going after. Um, Monkey see, monkey do. If a woman gets with the bad boy or the player type or whatever the case is, and she's single, and the daughter sees that, the daughter is going to go, okay, well then that's the kind of guy I want to be with. No one's going to care what the person might say, the parent might say, the mother might say. In that case, it's going to be more monkey see, monkey do, and not do as I say and not as I do. That's never going to work. Kids are always going to see what their parents do and they're going to go off that. So if there's a father in the picture who can say to his daughter, listen, this is the type you're going to go after. You're going to go after the working type. You're going to go after the type who comes home every night. You're going after that type who X, Y, and Z. This is what you should be looking for. That is important. Which my point to that is that a child support check does not replace that education. just learn from the dad. In addition, you have things like alimony to help the woman maintain a certain lifestyle, but without having to work for it. So now, once again, you're replacing the dependence of that man, that family structure, casting him out to the side. All of these are financial means to get rid of the man. And the way that usually the system executes this rapidly is immediately they'll make up reasons, or they'll encourage the woman to find these reasons to throw in things like an order of protection. So that way they can immediately get the data out of the picture. You have, law enforcement are encouraged to really give the benefit of doubt to the woman, not so much the man. The legal system in terms of the courtroom is all about giving more benefit to the woman, to the mothers automatically by default. They're always the ones getting the children, regardless. So the whole system is incentivized to give to the woman and take away from the man. And what happens is it creates a very nasty cycle, a very evil cycle of giving somebody like pie on a plate and saying, have all that you want. And where is this coming from? This is coming from the person you were with before. We're destroying your other half and telling you we'll give you, his financial goods, and that should solve everything. And they try to incentivize that as the examples I just gave you right now. And that just becomes a very huge problem because, like I said, it's destroying the family dynamic, and it's incentivizing for people not to not only stick around with each other, but the kids are suffering as well. And at that point, you have a situation where once the dad is out of the picture for whatever the means, whether it's because of order protection, whether it's because a court decides on it, whatever the case is, the kids will then in turn eventually forget about the father, depending on the age that happens. And regardless of whether they know that they have a dad, it doesn't stop the fact that they're at some point or another, where too much time passes, they're going to start seeing their dad as, not necessarily their safe haven. They're just going to see it as that person, probably the equivalent of a distant cousin. And that becomes a problem because now the kids are broken as well, and nobody cares. And the mothers aren't caring because they're thinking to themselves, well, the government told me this is what I needed, and I'm just going to go along with it. When it's the government cannot replace the father figure. The reason I'm focusing on this in terms of the fathers is because, like I said before, 10 out of 10 times, I'm going to say 9 times out of 10, 10 out of 10 times, it's always incentivized that the government is trying to get rid of the dad and keep the mom in the picture because they understand something, a very key point to understand. If you got rid of the mom and you kept the dad is going to still build the legacy with the kids. He's still going to future build. He's still going to build a legacy. He's still going to do all of that. In addition to that, most men, I would probably say, probably 75, 80% of men will still say, if the breakup wasn't bad, will say to their ex, if the guy had the kids, he would still say to the ex, you know what, maybe some way or someday we could maybe work this out. But in the meantime, let's still hang out. Let's still have family time. We aren't together anymore. But guess what? Even if you're dating someone else and I'm dating someone else, we're still going to put aside that time to come meet up, do stuff together with the family, because men don't care really about why things end. They're not emotional like that. So if the government tried to target men, it wouldn't work. It wouldn't stop the family structure from still existing, even if the two were separated, let alone the fact that men would not be incentivized to even break up the family structure. But even if they broke up because they just couldn't make it work, men would not try to target the mother or the children. If anything, they would still want that person to thrive. There would never be a point in time, like I said, I'm speaking for the majority, not the small percentages of men who don't really try to work. They just try to go from one woman to the next, and they're all about playing games. I'm not talking about those men, so we're not going to address those men. We're talking about the majority. The majority of men, um, if the government targeted them, they would look at the government like, no, get out of my face. I'm not doing this. I'm going to be here for my woman, even if we're not together anymore. I'm going to be here for my kids. And if he was the one primarily taking care of the kids, he's going to incorporate his ex into the mother of the children, into the lives of the kids. He's not going to say, I don't want her to see the kids at all and never get to see the kids. He's going to say, no, not only do I want her to see the kids, I want us to have family time together. He's going to do that. So this is the reason why the government knows they can't do that. But in addition, if the government did that and tried to target the man, not only is he still going to provide for his family as a whole and count them as his family as a whole, even if they aren't together, he's going to legacy build, and that is the primary thing they don't want. The government does not want legacy building. They do not want you to be able to provide and give money to your kids, so that way it's easier on them. By targeting the women and then destroying the family structure and saying, I'm going to give child support to the women, sometime alimony as well. At that point, you're taking away all the funds from the man of the family, the dad, the father. And essentially what you're doing is that's money that can be invested. Now, as you guys already know from the channel, if you watch previous videos that we talk about money management and how a person is able to take a certain amount of money, whether it's, $500 a month, maybe $1,000 a month, whatever's within your budget, and how you could put that away into investment accounts and savings, stocks and stuff like that, or investing in property. All that money now is now going to your ex that is spending that money on a lavish lifestyle to have fun. Why? Because generally speaking, and this is not a knock on women, in the family structure, when a man and a woman are together in the household with kids, the women will say to the man, these are the things we need priority to buy right now. We need school clothes for the kids. We need this, we need that. And they will prioritize what's needed at the moment. And the man will prioritize what's needed for the future. Okay, we need to put money aside because we need to do this. We need to buy that. We need to invest. We need to have money for the long term. And that is where they have this kind of cohesive relationship that really has a structure to it and it's balanced. When you eliminate one from the house and you're just giving money to one party freely, the one who's more about, which in this case is the woman, is more about the instant need to fix things. The woman is more about the here and now, the man is more about tomorrow. With that being said, when you give money to the woman and it's not knocking the woman, her natural role without the balance of the man to counter that role is to spend money immediately. And then now that they're having an influx of money, they're going to spend it and enjoy it and have a good time. Why? Because they're not looking at the future 20 years down the line. They're looking at the here and now. And so what happens is that the government knows this. This is why they target the women, because if they targeted the man would still say, I got to put away for a rainy day. Why? Because a single man is putting away for a rainy day. A single man, I know a lot of guys that are single, do not have kids, and they have a lot of money that they put away. They buy a house, they invest, they're doing all this stuff regardless. And then I'll know some women who their life and their credit is in shambles at 35 years old and up, which, like I said, I'm not knocking them. Part of the structure is that a woman and a man are supposed to get together at a young age. So that way the man plays his role, the woman plays her role, and it works together. When they don't get together for a long time, you have a lot of both aspects of them are incomplete. The men are doing their thing financially, but they are lacking in certain other aspects. Some of them are lacking in personality aspects if they've never been with a woman. While a woman is very social, she's about, understands the here and now, but is managing her money bad. So my point to all of that is that if the government targets the man, they know that they're not going to stop legacy building. And at the end of the day, that's what they want because they know that when people have financial freedom, as a family, then what happens is that now your kids have financial freedom when they turn 30 years old and they have a bunch of money. And check back with my money management videos on this channel, how I speak about how you can put away money for your kids when they're firstborn, 1 year old. And you can put away something like $6,000 into a investment account for their Roth IRA. When they turn 60 years old, that $6,000, and I say $6,000 because you put money into a Roth, you can only put so much. It's somewhere around the ballpark of 6,000 or 6,500 per year. You can't cap out more than that because when you turn 60, it's tax free. My point to what I'm saying now is that if you gave your kids that at year one, And then when they turn 60, now they're going to have something ballpark of a couple $1,000,000, maybe 2, $3 million just off that $6,000 that you put away in the bank. I think it may even be more than that, maybe $10 million. The point is that after that, guess what? When their kid had turned one, so when they hit 30, their kid turned one, they put $6,000 in the bank for them. Their kids do the same. Their kids do the same. What happens? You have this trickle down effect, which eventually every generation now has a couple $1,000,000 and growing. And so they know this. They do not want this. They do not want people to have financial freedom. They want people to be on the bottom. So the way they do that is they attack the family structure. And once again, you cannot attack the dad because men naturally are building their finances regardless. So it wouldn't work to target the dad. So they target the women, they target the mom. And that's essentially what they're doing. That's essentially where their aim is at with all of this. And as I mentioned before, this is the problem. This is how they're doing it. This is what they're doing. In particular, they usually go after more colored people in the US. And I'm just putting that out there because it's the truth and it's the facts. Some of it does get to other backgrounds who, are a little more, they're not thinking in that regards, or they're very neutral, they're pro society in general, whatever that might mean. I'm not going to speak on a political system, but who are just pro society in general. And so those people might also get caught up in the attack. But generally speaking, they don't want, they're attacking the forefront, making an attack on men and an attack on the mindset of women to see men as the enemy so they can break up the family. That is what is going on here. Now, in the next video, we're going to speak on ways to fix this. And I'm not saying that these are all the correct answer necessarily. There's many different ways to go about it. But these are, excuse me, hiccups. These are the ways, some ways that could be used to try to fix things. But I want to let something be known and be clear. Society is changing. What we conventionally were used to back in the days will probably never exist anymore ever again because it's too far gone to bring things back. Now, we all wish for that, but we're all too brainwashed to actually get back there. And what I mean by that is going back to, like I started in the beginning of the video, just look at the dating market. Both men and women's attention span for dating is super small. Nobody even wants to stay in anything longer than a day before they say, you know what, move on to the next. I see these problems. I don't even want to deal with it. And then move on to the next. In addition to that, a lot of people who have red flags say, I'm not correcting my red flags. I'll just move on to the next person who's willing to accept my red flags. And they view red flags as a part of their personality and not a problem. So with all that, the dating market is so screwed up as it is that it will never go back to the days of, you're somewhere in the range of 20 to 22 years old, 23 years old. You, as a man, you go court a woman. That woman is like, okay, I'm not dealing with none of the, funny boys here who running around getting with girls and this and that. No, he's that boring, get a job, hit the books like a dad type of guy. I'm getting with that, which at one time, many years back, people would say, that's what I want to get with. That's, used to see it in movies all the time. It was like that was the ideal thing to do. You might have hang with the bad guy for a little bit, but maybe within no more than like 2 years, maybe by 22, from 20 to 22, you're like, I'm done with that for the women. And they tell, I got to get with the guy who reminds me of my dad. Why? Because they had the dad actually in the home and they saw him every day come home from work. They seen him working hard. They seen how much the mom loved him so much. And they would go, that's what I need. So now they had an example to look for and look at. And so those days of that, where the guy can just court a woman and after that, he's with her. And then now they're together for the next 15, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. Those days are over. They're completely over. They're not coming back. And though society wants you to think they're going to come back so we can keep repeating the same mistakes, the sooner we realize they're not coming back, the sooner we start making changes to try to figure out how we get around this. So in the next video, we're going to talk about a lot of the points that will help change that. And with that being said, Like I said, they're not going to necessarily be the perfect answers, but they're just a few suggestions in these new coming days for us to turn things around. And it's very important because right now we have too many households that are being destroyed, too many children that don't have dads in the home, and they do not have a legacy. There's so many kids who should be, almost every single kid should be turning 30 as a millionaire, and they're not. And that's a problem that you can go from, we'll say, starting even from the 60s, 70s, even the 80s. How do you have generations moving forward and the next generation after that has less than what the generation before it has? That makes no sense at all. It's because it's being done purposely and to target and manipulate. And this is their plan. So with that being said, you guys, stay tuned for the next video. Like, share, comment, subscribe. And definitely, you guys, take care, be safe. And anything you guys have to say down below, put it in, or stay tuned for that next one because we're going to hit all those points afterwards. And this is a very important video, so that's why it ran long, but I've really been waiting to put this out there because I really need everyone to know this. I think it's very important. And if you feel it doesn't apply to you, that's fine. But for those who does apply to, really sink this into your system because you need to understand you are under attack. Catch you guys in the next video.